Got it. Hi, my name is Kathy, and I am a recovering alcoholic. And thank you, Stephen, for inviting me to participate. I just want you to know, I'm going to do a little bit of a blurb on the Serenity Improvement Group. I started going to this meeting on Saturdays in 2020, and then they started doing it on Tuesdays also. And I don't think I have missed a single meeting. And I recognize a lot of people on this Zoom, and, you know, including Edna and Karen and Sue and Dan and Wes and Carol. I met her at a Tuesday meeting, Taco Tuesday. And Diane, thank you. So there are a lot of people here that I know quite well from other meetings. And there are a lot of people that I've met here at this Serenity Improvement Group meeting. And if you've never gotten the daily ponderables, give it a shot. It's wonderful. You get it every day. There's the daily reflections, the 24-hour book, Keep It Simple. There's Buddhist thoughts. There's Native American. You name it, it's and you can read all of it or just the parts that you want, but it's really well worth it. So I highly recommend putting your email into the, I think, Stephen, don't you have like 30,000 or something subscribers now? So it's very popular, and I have enjoyed getting it, probably because I can read it on my cell phone. So I really like it because it starts off my day. And today, you know, we have a lot of choices in this world, you know, but one of the choices that I never had was the choice to stay sober by myself. But I do have a choice that every day I can get up and I can ask my higher power for help in keeping me sober. I am sober today only because of that request that I do every single day. I cannot stay sober by myself. I can stop, but I can't stay stopped. And that's kind of my story in a nutshell. One of my prayers that is not in the daily ponderables, but it's my favorite, higher power. In the past several hours, I have not hurt anyone. I have not had a drink, and I have peacefully coexisted with life. For that, I am grateful. But I'm about to get out of bed now, and I'm really gonna need your help. And that is my life in a nutshell. When I'm lying in bed, it's so easy to be serene. It's so easy to ask for help. And then I got to get out of bed. And there it is. One of the things that daily reflections, which was yesterday, while I was drinking, I reacted with anger, self-pity, and defiance against anyone who wanted to change me. All I wanted then was to be accepted, and I'm going to cry, by another human being simply as I was. And curiously, that is what I found in AA. And I have to tell you that that statement is me in a nutshell. So a little bit of background. My sobriety date is June 22nd, 1980. I have been sober for more than half my life. And there's another quote that I get, and it's from the grapevine. Every day you could get a daily quote that they email you. This was from November 3rd. I spent the first 30 years making a mess of the life I was given. The next 30 trying to figure out this simple program. And now I can try in the last 30 to loosen up, let life happen, and try to have a little fun. So, that is one of the reasons that I love these quotes. I love reading the daily reflections. Whatever you read, as long as it adds a little nugget, I call them golden nuggets. I like collecting them because they remind me through the day that I can stop, I can pause, I can pray, and I can proceed. I didn't know these things because I reacted with anger, self-pity, and defiance all my life. I was born in Belgium. My parents, my dad was a coal miner. My parents had an opportunity to come to the United States. We were supposed to go to Maryland to work for a dairy farmer. And meanwhile, my godmother and her husband were in Chicago, and they got him a job working at the railroad yards, pushing baggage around because you didn't have to speak English to do that. And so the farmer in Maryland is still looking for us. Just so you know, they're still looking for us, Anyway, so we came to the United States in 1956. I was 7 years old. One of the things my father said was, learn how to speak English because we are not going back. We're in America now, and you better learn how to speak this language. And so I did. So I think I'm pretty fluent in English, but when it comes to the Lord Prayer, I still know it in Ukrainian. What can I tell you? I'm of Ukrainian descent. So my parents were from Ukraine. They went to internment camps in Germany. From Germany, they were pushed over to Belgium. And then from Belgium, they came to the US. We were poor. And my dad was the neighborhood drunk. And I remember growing up as a kid thinking, I don't want to be like him. Never going to happen. And I believe I was an alcoholic before I picked up the first drink. I was always afraid. I was always scared. And anyway, long story short, my first suicidal thoughts were, well, I always was hoping that my real parents lost me in that shuffle and that they would show up and save me from these people. I didn't think I belonged with them. Anyway, long story short, I was 12 years old and my kid brother was born and he was a spitting image of me. Damn, there went all my hopes and dreams. I mean, I had to admit that maybe these were really my parents. But I spent most of my childhood afraid. And what I did is I read a lot. I would go to the library, I'd get a whole bunch of books. And if you were looking for me, I usually had my face buried in a book. Because if you did that, you stayed out of trouble and Pop wouldn't kick the shit out of you. So you did whatever you had to do. So all through my life, that is pretty much what I did. At the age, and I graduated from high school. I went to a junior college. I'm from Chicago. I grew up in Chicago, Wright City College. And I spent the whole first semester at the bowling alley. I don't know why, because I was young, I was stupid, who knows? That summer, I got a job in the Catskill Mountains of New York, working for a Ukrainian camp as the assistant director. My future husband, who was 20 years older, was the director of the camp. Again, I have no excuse except that I was young. I was pretty naive and quite frankly, not very bright, I guess. I ended up marrying him that summer. I'm 18 years old. I meet this stranger at a camp. up in the Catskill Mountains, and I marry him and I move to New Jersey. I had my first child at the age of 19. By the time I was 21, I had my son. By the time I was 21 and a half, I had left New Jersey with my children. And by October of that year, I was getting a divorce. So here I was back in Chicago, where basically I had been running away from. And there I was back at home. And my parents owned a 5-flat in Humboldt Park. And my dad just told people on the second floor they got to move out because his daughter is here. And so they let me move back there. And up to that point, I was drinking occasionally. My ex-husband, God rest his soul. Anyway, he had convinced me that I really should drink once in a while because I was pretty frigid. And so his mother used to make this raspberry liqueur. They had a raspberry patch, and she would put 100 proof vodka in it. Man, that shit was good. I'm telling you, it was sweet. You had to put a little club soda in it because it was a little too sweet. That was the first time I drank because I was never going to be like my father. My family put the fun in dysfunctional. And I was not going to be like him. So here I am, 21 and a half. I'm divorced. My children are very small. I get one time I worked 3 waitressing jobs. And my parents helped take care of the kids. And I found that if I wanted to relax, I had to have a drink. And of course, I don't know about the rest of you, but I was young. I was looking for love. Well, I was looking for love in all the wrong places, as that song goes. And so I would go out to the bars and I would, of course, have a couple of cocktails. And of course, I had to compete with all those other women sitting in the bars because I couldn't afford to drink a lot. So I had to compete with those women. So for a long time, I did not consider women to be my friends, okay? Because they were competition, you know. Anyway, so I'm gonna move right along and let you know that my alcoholism, which started probably before I was 1, progressed rapidly. It didn't take a long time. And the first time I called AA was in 1975. And the reason I called AA is because I had a party in this apartment in Humboldt Park. And the reason for the party was because I had my eye on a guy. You know, anyway, so I had a party so that he could come, you know, to my party and say, oh, wow, where have you been all my life or whatever, because always looking for love, right? I had made brand new curtains, hand sewn, well, with a sewing machine, but he had the audacity to walk in with another female. Oh my God. I, of course, promptly kept drinking. And when I got rid of all of these people, I tore the curtains down. Now, I mean, we're talking really insanity. The next day I called AA. They sent a husband and wife team, Tom and Jerry, and they took me to my first AA meeting. And I went into this little church. And we went down into the basement. And all I could think was, oh my God, there's pipes in the ceiling, the paint is peeling. What am I doing here? And then that weekend, they took me to Logan Square. They had an Alano Club, and it was a speaker meeting. And the speaker was like, he started off by saying, yeah, when I heard the clank of the jail cell doors, I thought, I do not belong here. So Tom and Jerry kept calling me, and you know how these people are when they're new in the program. I kept putting them off, and they stopped calling. And I proceeded to keep on drinking. And it got worse and worse. It got to the point where I could not tell you what would happen when I drank. I couldn't tell you where I would end up, who I would end up with, and I didn't even know, I couldn't tell you when I would get home. But I still thought that I was in charge because I like being in charge. And so I just kept on drinking. And then I'm trying not to do a big drunk log, but unfortunately, that's part of my story. So from 1975, I stopped thinking about AA. I don't think that you guys have a real solution. And I just keep drinking and drinking, and my drinking progresses, and it gets worse and worse. And all of those dreams and hopes and aspirations went right down the tubes. All I could do was survive. I reacted with anger, self-pity, and defiance against anyone who wanted to change me. And I was afraid that if I came to AA, you guys might want to change me. So I avoided AA because that was not where I wanted to be. Long story short, in 1979, I decided I was drinking so much that my body shook. I could not sign my name. I could not step over the threshold of my house without a drink. And so I decided, you know what? Maybe having a beer in the morning might help. And it did. It was wonderful. It was like I found the cure. So now I'm drinking first thing in the morning. I'm driving to work, and I'm stopping at a 7-Eleven and buying a 6-pack of beer, a head of lettuce, a loaf of white bread, and bacon, and telling this clerk, who really at 6 o'clock in the morning does not care, that I'm going to have lunch with some of my friends. She doesn't care. Just give her the money and get the hell out. Anyway, but that's the kind of stuff I used to do. And one day I had been reading a book, and I just thought this book was wonderful. It was called The Drinking Man's Diet, because I always wanted to lose weight. And he had all of these really good recipes for tomato juice and vodka and orange juice and all this kind of stuff. I thought, oh my God, where has this book been? Anyway, I started drinking vodka and orange juice. I poured some into my son's Snoopy thermos. And I walked into work. The first time I drank inside the building, first thing in the morning. I walk into work, I go to the ladies' room, I take a good slug. Now, my son's Snoopy thermos. I come out of the ladies' room. My boss is walking down the hall. He says, good morning. I say, good morning. I sit at my desk, my phone rings, and he says, would you come in and visit with me for a minute? I'm like, okay, thinking nothing of it. Don't even realize that the vodka and the booze was coming out of my pores. It didn't matter how many showers I took. I was engulfed in alcohol fumes. So I go to his office and he says to me, I smell booze on your breath, in your breath. Do you have a drinking problem? Well, by then I had gotten smart. And of course I said, yes, I do. Because had I lied, he would have fired me on the spot. By admitting I had a drinking problem, that afternoon I was in a treatment center. Went into treatment for 21 days. After the first week, I was running tours because I like to fix, manage, and control. So I'm running tours. If you're a new patient, I'm showing you around. I come and they took us to an AA meeting. They picked us up in vans and they took us to this big AA meeting. I think it was a club in Arlington Heights or something. And the speaker said, welcome to the adventures of living sober. And I rolled my eyes and I looked at the patient next to me. I said, oh my God, who are they kidding? So again, I didn't want to have anything to do with AA. I went through the treatment program only because the insurance wouldn't have paid for it if I had bugged out, right? I go back to work. 3 days later, I'm out of treatment and I'm stealing champagne from the office Christmas party. Because here's the bottom line, folks, I had no desire to stop drinking. And it says in how it works, if you want what we have and are willing to go to any lengths to get it, I didn't want what you had. But a couple of the patients picked me up. They said, hey, let's go to a meeting. I said, sure. I went to a place called the Northwest Edge Alano Club. I'm drunk. And people just didn't say anything. Can you imagine you're sitting at a meeting and there's if the place is packed, there had to be 70 people. You are reeking of alcohol. And these AA people don't say anything because the only requirement is a desire to stop drinking. I didn't want to tell them I had no such desire. I had a desire to stop shaking. I had a desire to save my job, but I didn't want to stop drinking. Drinking was my solution. Drinking was how I could forget how crappy my life was. Drinking was everything. It was my life. I thought about booze, how I was going to get it, when I was going to get it, was it on sale, how I was going to hide it from my kids and my mother, okay? And I have to tell you this one story. When I was drinking, I used to hide my booze. We had a walk-in pantry and there was a laundry room basket. You know how you throw in plastic bags and stuff. I used to hide my booze. And then the next day, I couldn't find my booze. So I would accuse my kids and my mother, who took my booze? Then I get sober and I find my booze. Well, I'm going to tell you, that was a difficult one. Because when you're drinking and you find your booze, you're like, hallelujah. But now you're sober. And you find these half bottles of vodka in a suitcase in the closet or the laundry basket in the pantry. You're finding bottles all over the place because I had to get that drunk to find them again, right? Because anyway, so I decide okay, if I'm going to meetings, I'm not shaking, maybe I should keep going to meetings. So I keep going to meetings. I go to meetings for a week and then I drink. Then I go to meetings for 2 weeks and then I drink. I remember one time going to a Friday meeting and putting $1 in my pocket, walking a mile to the meeting, listening to all you wonderful people. putting the buck in a basket, going home, picking up my wallet and my car keys and going to the liquor store because I didn't want to stop. Then I was looking for angles. There's got to be an angle. You people might not be drinking Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but I bet you drink on Saturdays and Sundays. I couldn't believe that people were actually not drinking on a regular basis. Who knew? Anyway, one of the ladies at one of the meetings said to me, Kathy, the next time you want to drink, make sure you don't run out. Your problem is you run out of booze and then you don't drink for a few days and you come to meetings and then you go back out and get some more. She said, you have to drown in a sea of alcohol. And I thought, what a rotten thing to say to me. And I thought she was a real witch, but it was with a B. Okay. So I thought, what is she talking about? She said, drown in a sea of alcohol, because until you have a desire to stop drinking, you are not going to stay stopped. So I drowned in a sea of alcohol. I lost 3-day weekend. And then I thought, well, this is not working. And meanwhile, I'm going to a meeting every single day. I'm the last one in the door. I'm the first one out. I mean, sometimes I wouldn't even stay for the Lord's Prayer because I was at the meeting, I didn't drink, and I was angry and resentful and full of self-pity because how was I supposed to live my life when I didn't have my solution? And I don't think I heard anything, but I kept coming back. You know, those AA people, they keep saying things like, keep coming back. And I kept thinking, why? Why would you want me to come back? Anyway, I tried to find a sponsor because you hear about that. They say, you got to get a sponsor. You got to work the steps. Keep coming back. And I would ask women, and they always came up with really good excuses. Well, I'm already sponsoring 4 people or whatever. Then I heard, you got to go to a retreat. If you go to a retreat, you'll be able to find a sponsor there. So I go to a retreat. I asked one lady, she said, Kathy, nobody's going to sponsor you. You scare the crap out of us. Because I was angry, full of self-pity and defiance. You cannot hug a porcupine. Nobody wanted to sponsor me. I thought, well, what the hell? She said, honey, what you really need is anger management. I got to tell you my anger management story. She happens to have, by the way, I think she was prepared for me, happens to have a flyer for an anger management clinic in Skokie, Illinois at the Holiday Inn. And I call them up and I sign up and I show up on a Saturday morning and I pay my $35. Don't forget, we're talking 1980. Now it costs probably $350, but 1980 for $35, you could go to an anger management clinic at the Holiday Inn in Skokie. And I walked in there, I gave them my money, and I go inside and I'm early. And you could smoke. There's ashtrays on a table way in the back. There's a guy standing in front of the ashtrays. And I go to get an ashtray and he's doing this dance. I said, hey, what's your problem? Don't forget, I've got anger issues. So he says, well, we're going to ask people not to smoke because my wife is allergic to cigarettes or to smoke. I said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. You tell your wife to sit in the front. I'll sit way in the back. It was a big room. He said, no, we're at. I told him off very eloquently. By the way, I hung around with a lot of truck drivers. And then proceeded to go to the front, tell all of those people off, demand my money back, and walk out of the anger management clinic. I get to the car. I am shaking so badly that I cannot drive. And then, for the first time in my life, not maybe for the first time in my life, but conscious contact with what are you doing? This is why you are here, because you get so angry. I calmed down. I went back. I apologized, and I promised not to cause a ruckus if they would let me stay. I can honestly tell you, I don't know if I got anything from that anger management clinic. At lunch, I sat with a bunch of smokers, and then after lunch, we proceeded to beat up the leaders of this anger management clinic as to why we couldn't smoke and nobody let us, blah, 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 blah. Because guess what? We were a bunch of angry people. But I do know that for the first time, I had a conscious realization that you need to change. This is why you're here. So I stayed sober for like 3 months. I'm at an AA party. First time I'm at a sober party because I was young. I was 29 or something like that. Anyway, and I decided it's on a Friday night at about 11:30. I decide I'm done. I'm leaving. There's a midnight meeting at the club. I go to the club and I climb up, and they had like 20 stairs, and I'm sitting there and there's nobody in the joint. And it's like 11:45. And I'm thinking, well, that was stupid. Why? You left a pretty nice party, all of these sober people, and you're sitting here by yourself. The door opens, and in walks an old drinking buddy of mine that I hadn't seen for 4 or 5 years. And she looks at me and she said, Kathy. And I said, Josephine. We used to work together and we used to drink together. And on a number of occasions, we got drunk together. But meanwhile, she quit that place and she was in the program and had about 4 years of sobriety. I have a lot of those, what I called aha moments. My friend Dana calls them God shots, right? Whatever you want to call them, they are not coincidences. I was at a perfectly good party. I was not having a bad time, and I needed to go. Here's the other part. Josephine lived at least 15 miles away. She was already in bed and decided at 11 o'clock, I need a meeting, looked up the fact that this place had a midnight meeting, got up, got dressed, and went to that club. And in 4 years of sobriety, she had only been there twice. You call it a coincidence, a God shot. All I can tell you, there have been a lot of incidents like that that have make me refocus on my sobriety, have made me think about where I'm going. I have another one about Jimmy Hodges and the mustard seed. I'm sober for about a year. Well, I don't know if you want to call it sober. I was dry. I was hanging on with white knuckle sobriety, I think they call it. And I go to this meeting in downtown Chicago. I was filling in for another sales rep. And I thought, oh, what the hell? I'll go to this meeting. And I go in there and the place is packed. There's one empty chair and it's right next to a guy who's reeking of alcohol. And I sit down and Jimmy Hodges is the speaker. And he had dreadlocks and he had a long beard and he was charismatic. He was one of those people that you wanted to jump up and say, hallelujah, you know? And he said, are you in the program or are you out? If you are around the program, you better jump in with both feet because that picket fence is very painful if you've got one foot in and the other foot out. And I hadn't thought about, was I in AA? I thought that if you went to meetings, you were an AA member. My friend Dana likes to tell this other story. By the way, Dana and I have been attending Serenity Improvement Group pretty much regularly since 2020. So I just want you to know that. And, you know, basically, are you in this program or are you out? And Dana will say, you know, if you sit in a garage, it doesn't make you a car. So if you go to meetings and all you're doing is sitting and occupying space, it doesn't mean you're a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. It means that you're there. I had never thought about, was I in or was I out? One of the reasons I still go to meetings today, and I average one meeting a day because I Zoom. I love Zoom, by the way, just in case anybody has any doubts. I think Zoom changed AA, and I still highly recommend that newcomers go to in-person meetings, but fill in with Zoom because Zoom allows you. You know, Carol was talking about before the meeting, you want to go to a meeting in Poland or Germany, or you can go to meetings all around the world. Stephen always reads that little part of the foreword to the 4th edition, modem to modem. It's the language of the heart, face to face or modem to modem. It's the language of the heart. Yes, I know people who have gotten sober on Zoom and have stayed sober. So if you think Zoom isn't for you, you might want to rethink it. I love in-person meetings, but for a lot of reasons, I choose not to go at this time. Doesn't mean I won't. My home group is on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. And we still have a Zoom meeting at 6 p.m. The majority of the people went back to in person. And that's fine, because I don't ever have to wonder about, oh, is it snowing out? Oh, you know, I can get on Zoom. And so I love Zoom. But I digress. Just because you're sitting at a meeting doesn't mean, you know, you hear people saying meeting makers make it. Okay. Yeah, you got to go to meetings, because where else are you going to hear about God? Where else are you going to hear about a higher power that will help you to stay sober one day at a time? Who is talking about that out there? Now, if you're a religious person, yes, you're hearing it at your church. But if you're not a religious person like me, I know I'm a pagan. What can I tell you? But if you're not a religious person, Where else am I going to hear this? Where am I going to hear the hope of this program? Where am I going to hear that I can stay sober one day at a time if I am willing to change? And again, I'm going to go back to that daily reflections from yesterday. All I wanted then was to be accepted by another human simply as I was. And curiously, that is what I found in AA. In AA, I was enough. I was enough. Yeah, I still screw up. I still make mistakes. There is no doubt about it. You know, I have to also, those aha moments, when you look back, that's when I look back. I don't know I'm in an aha moment at the moment. I'm slow that way. I got to look. I got to keep moving forward. And then I look back and I say, oh, that was a God shot. I'm getting ready to go to work one day. I'm about 2 years in the program. And I'm getting ready to go to work. And I step out onto my enclosed porch and I see a woman standing in the alley. In Chicago, we've got alleys with the garbage cans. She is rooting through the garbage cans. It is 7:30 in the morning, looking for beer cans so she can redeem them so she can buy booze. I look at her. She looks at me. She's about my age. And I think to myself, if you drink, that could be you. That garbage picker kept me sober for another year. Those God shots are so important. And I know you've all had one. But those are the reasons I am sober today. Is it a coincidence? Is it a God shot? Is it an aha moment? It doesn't matter. What matters is that it happened and it hit part of my conscience. And let me tell you what AA has done for me. It's given me a moral compass. I no longer end up in strange places. I no longer end up with strange people. I always know where my car is parked. My grandchildren have never seen me drink. They have never seen me drunk. I mean, and I tell them that I'm in the program, by the way. Because I do believe this is a family illness. But I don't drink today because my life is manageable when I don't drink. My life is better than anything I could have imagined. All because of this program of Alcoholics Anonymous. All I can tell you for sure is if you're new in the program and you're not sure, try it. Find a higher power. What do you got to lose? My life was in a crapper. What did I have to lose by finding a higher power? The other thing I always tell people is you need to figure out a way to meditate. Now, some people do the 11-step meditation where they actually sit there and I'm not good at that. So I make miniatures because when I'm doing the miniatures, all I'm thinking about is don't get super glue on your hands, don't cut your finger. Or I walk, or I garden. Find something, whether it's knitting, crocheting, baking, reading, volunteer work, running, jogging, but find something that takes you out of you, that allows you for that time frame to stop thinking about yourself. I think there's some place that says humility is thinking less about myself. Oh, I forget how it goes. I know you people know what I'm talking about, but it's thinking less of me and more about the other person, you know. So find something creative. Jump into this program with both feet. That picket fence can be real painful. What do you got to lose? If your life's in a crapper like mine was, it's all gravy after that. Today, I believe that my higher power has given me the ability to see more clearly. I don't pick up a drink. There are days that I am not a happy camper, but nothing, no matter what, has caused me to pick up a drink. Nothing. So keep coming back. One of the other things, and I'll stop with this, early on in the program, I told you I wasn't very religious. Desiderata, if nobody has heard of it, my sponsor actually gave it to me, and she was very religious. She was very Catholic, by the way. But there's a sentence in there. It says, you are a child of this universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. And I have to remember that. The universe is unfolding as it should without my pushing and prodding. It's just going on. Life just goes on. How am I going to live? Am I going to live sober or am I going to live drunk? If I'm going to live sober, am I going to try to change? Because if I drink, I might as well just commit suicide, because that's where my thinking goes. How do I want to live? Life is unfolding as it should. I may not always agree with it, but I've got to live with it, and I don't drink no matter what. So thank you all for being here, and thank you all for putting up with me.